Imagine standing ankle-deep in black water. The sea is glowing with fire. Not metaphorically. Literally. Burning ships drift past you, their sails screaming as the wind tears them apart. Men claw at the waves, their armor dragging them down, fingers bleeding as they grab at anything solid. You hear bones crack. You hear prayers, some in Mongolian, some in Chinese, some in Korean, collapsing into screams as arrows rain from the dark shoreline. And then you see it. A lone Japanese warrior steps forward on a small boat, beats his chest, shouts his name to the sky, and challenges the greatest empire on earth to single combat. Here's the impossible question. How did the most feared army in human history, an army that annihilated nations from Hungary to Baghdad, become so terrified of Japan that they never came back? Stay with me. Because what happened next shattered the Mongols' belief that heaven was on their side. And it all began with a decision so arrogant, it doomed tens of thousands. You think you know the Mongol invasions of Japan. You've heard the word kamikaze. You've been told a storm saved the samurai. That's the lie. Because the real story is darker, more brutal, and far more humiliating for the Mongols. In the next hour, you're going to witness the moment Mongol soldiers, veterans of massacres across Asia, began vomiting from fear as severed heads were nailed to boats and pushed into their fleet. The secret night raids that turned Japan's coastline into a slaughterhouse, one ship at a time. The personal breakdown of a Mongol commander who realized too late that Japan was not a country, it was a death trap. The forgotten Japanese tactic that violated everything the Mongols believed about honorable war, and worked horrifyingly well. And finally, the storm everyone talks about, but almost nobody understands, because by the time it arrived, the invasion was already dead. But first, you need to understand just how hopeless Japan's situation really was. Because in 1281, the Mongol Empire did not lose battles. It erased civilizations. You are a Japanese peasant in the summer of 1281. The air is thick with heat and rot. The rice fields stink. Every road is clogged with refugees. People whisper the same word over and over again. Moko. The Mongols. 7 years ago, they came once already. And they came back angry. This time, they are bringing the largest invasion fleet the world has ever seen. Over 140,000 men. Chinese infantry. Korean sailors. Mongol cavalry forced onto ships. Engineers. Bomb throwers. Veterans of cities burned so completely that nothing ever grew there again. You hear the stories. Men tied together and butchered for sport. Entire villages executed because one man resisted. Children taken. Women erased from history. And now they're sailing toward you. Japan is fractured. Weak. Politically paralyzed. The shogun in Kamakura issues orders, but the court in Kyoto drags its feet. Samurai argue over land grants that don't exist yet. No one knows who will pay for the war. No one even agrees on how to fight it. You don't have an empire. You don't have professional armies. You don't have gunpowder. What you have is coastline. And fear. Because across the sea, a man who believes himself chosen by heaven has decided Japan must kneel. His name is Kublai Khan. And he has never accepted no as an answer. Kublai Khan is not just another conqueror. He is the grandson of Genghis Khan. And by 1281, he rules the largest contiguous empire in human history. China is his. Korea obeys. Persia burns. Russia pays tribute. When his messengers arrive in Japan demanding submission, they don't negotiate. They announce reality. Submit, or be destroyed. The Japanese kill the envoys. Twice. That alone, in Mongol logic, is unforgivable. But worse. Japan embarrassed them. In 1274, the first invasion landed. The Mongols fought like a machine, drums beating, rockets screaming, soldiers advancing in tight formations the samurai had never seen. And yet, it stalled. Japanese resistance was chaotic, desperate, unorthodox. And then a storm wrecked the fleet. Kublai Khan did not see divine intervention. He saw unfinished business. So he orders a second invasion. Bigger. Crueler. Absolute. 2 armies. 2 fleets. A pincer meant to crush Japan forever. The Eastern Route Army sails from Korea. The Southern Route Army sails from China. They are not supposed to fight separately. They are supposed to unite and drown Japan in blood. But already, something is going wrong. Let's talk about the man who will soon realize he's made a fatal mistake. His name is Hong Daegu. He is a Mongol general, hardened, efficient, not cruel for pleasure, but utterly ruthless when needed. He has seen cities starved into silence. He has ordered executions that lasted days. And yet, as the invasion fleet gathers, witnesses say he is uneasy. Because Japan is wrong. The coastline is narrow. The tides are violent. The weather unpredictable. And worse, the samurai don't fight like anyone else. They don't mass. They don't retreat logically. They don't break when they should. Hong Daegu has heard reports from 1274 of warriors who shout their names before attacking, who fight alone, who charge into impossible odds just to kill one man. It makes no sense. And the Mongols fear what makes no sense. Still, orders are orders. The fleet sails. And the sea turns black with ships. On the Japanese side, despair is turning into something else. Obsession. Because this time, Japan prepares. They know they can't beat the Mongols in open battle. So they change the rules. Stone walls are built along Hakata Bay. Thick, ugly, functional. Samurai are ordered to abandon traditional battlefield etiquette. No more ritual duels. No more announcing names. Kill. Survive. Repeat. One man in particular takes this personally. Takizaki Suenaga. A low-ranking samurai with everything to prove. He fought in the first invasion. He nearly died. He received no reward. Now he sharpens his blade every night, staring at the sea, waiting for ships. Because this time, he doesn't want honor. He wants recognition. And blood. When the Mongol fleet finally appears, it does not arrive like a storm. It arrives like judgment. The horizon disappears behind sails. Oars churn the water into foam. Drums pound, not for morale, but to coordinate mass death. Japanese defenders freeze. This is not an army. It is a moving city. The first landings begin. And immediately, the Mongols realize something is wrong. The samurai do not charge. They wait. Arrows begin falling, not in volleys, but individually. Targeted. Personal. A man drops. Then another. Then another. Night falls. And that's when the real horror begins. Because the Japanese don't attack during the day. They attack when the Mongols think they're safe. Small boats slip out silently. Samurai pad their oars with cloth. They tie their armor to avoid clanking. Faces smeared with ash. They board Mongol ships in the dark. No warnings. No challenges. No mercy. A guard's throat opens before he can shout. Another man wakes up to a blade sliding between ribs. Fires are lit below deck. Ships drift apart, burning, colliding, spreading panic. One Mongol survivor later says it felt like the sea itself was hunting them. And this is only the beginning. Because what happens next makes the Mongols understand something terrifying. Japan is not defending itself. Japan is stalking them. But before we go further, you need to understand the man who believes heaven still favors him. Kublai Khan is waiting for victory. And when he finally learns what is happening to his fleet, it will break something inside him. Because for the first time in his life, the Mongols are not feared. They are being hunted. You think this is where the Mongols adapt. You think this is where the greatest military machine in history recalibrates, tightens formation, and crushes resistance the way it always has. It doesn't. Because the Mongols don't understand what's happening to them yet. They believe this is harassment. Annoying. Dishonorable. Temporary. They believe dawn will fix everything. Dawn makes it worse. Morning breaks over Hakata Bay, and the sea tells the truth before anyone does. Charred hulls bump gently against intact ships. Bodies float face down, armor dragging them half under. The water smells wrong, salt mixed with blood, oil, burned wood, human waste. Oars snap against corpses. Seagulls scream and scatter when arrows thud into the waves. Mongol officers count ships. The numbers don't add up. They count men. The numbers don't add up. Some ships are intact, but silent. No movement. No response. Boarding parties are sent. They find decks slick with blood, ropes cut, anchors gone. In the holds, burned bodies fuse together where fire sucked the oxygen out of their lungs. This was not a battle. This was an execution. And it happened at night, without warning, without honor, without rules. The Mongols hate this. Because Mongol warfare is terror, but it is controlled terror. Loud. Overwhelming. Psychological dominance through scale and inevitability. What the samurai are doing feels intimate, personal, predatory. Hongdagu orders tighter security. More guards. More patrols. Ships lashed together to prevent isolation. This is a mistake. Because now, when one ship burns, it takes 3 others with it. That night, the Japanese come again. This time, they bring heads. Not metaphorically. Literally. Severed Mongol heads are tied to planks. Messages are carved into wood. The rafts are set adrift toward the fleet. A Korean sailor sees them first. He screams. Officers rush forward. Torches are raised. And they see faces. Mouths frozen open. Eyes missing. Some heads shaved, others still tangled with hair stiff from dried blood. Many are men who were alive yesterday. This is not just killing. This is psychological warfare. The Mongols have done this to others. They have never had it done to them. One Mongol infantryman, his name is lost, but his words survive in later accounts, vomits over the side of the ship and refuses to eat. Another starts screaming in his sleep. Another begs to be transferred anywhere else. Anywhere but Japan. This is the beginning of something dangerous. Doubt. Because the Mongols believe deeply in destiny. In heaven's favor. In momentum. And Japan feels cursed. Let's pause here. Because this is where history usually jumps ahead and says, and then the typhoon came. No. No, it didn't. Not yet. And pretending it did erases the most important part of this story. The Mongols are already bleeding out. On land, the Japanese are barely holding. The stone walls along Hakata Bay are doing their job, but just barely. Mongol arrows slam into defenders. Bombs arc through the air and explode with thunder and flame. Men die screaming, armor torn open like paper. Samurai charge, get cut down, are dragged back, patched up, sent forward again. There is no rotation. No relief. Every man knows if the line breaks, there is no second line. There is only slaughter. Takizaki Suenaga fights here. He takes an arrow to the arm and keeps fighting. He is knocked down, trampled, nearly drowned in mud and blood. At one point, he believes he's dying, and is angry, not afraid, because he hasn't done enough to be remembered. That matters. Because Japanese motivation in this battle is not conquest. It's survival and legacy. If they die, their families die. Their names disappear. Their land is taken by invaders who do not care who owned it before. There is no surrender scenario. That makes men dangerous. Back at sea, Mongol commanders argue. The plan was simple. Land. Link up. Overwhelm. But the fleets are separated. Communication is slow. The Japanese refuse to give them a clean battle. And the weather is starting to feel hostile. Winds shift without warning. Waves slam ships into each other. Anchors drag. Veteran sailors mutter that this coast is wrong. That the sea behaves badly here. Mongol officers dismiss them. They shouldn't. Here's a human story from the other side. A Chinese conscript named Zhong Wei. He was a farmer once. Pressed into service. Given a spear, minimal training, and told that obedience meant survival. He doesn't hate Japan. He doesn't even understand why he's here. One night, during a Japanese raid, his ship catches fire. He jumps into the water to escape the flames. His armor drags him under. He cuts the straps and surfaces, only to see a Japanese boat gliding toward him. He raises his hands. The samurai stabs him anyway. Zhong Wei survives long enough to crawl onto wreckage and watch the battle continue without him. He later says the most terrifying part wasn't the killing. It was the silence. No shouting. No triumph. Just methodical murder. By now, Hong Dagu knows something is deeply wrong. He orders a full withdrawal from the shore. The Mongols retreat to their ships. They believe the sea will protect them. It becomes their grave. Because now the Japanese adapt again. They stop attacking randomly. They coordinate. Specific ships are targeted. Command vessels. Supply ships. Boats carrying horses, which scream horribly when burned alive. The Mongols try to fight back at night, but they're not trained for this. Their strength is massed firepower, formation, momentum. In the dark, on rocking decks, with shadows slipping between hulls, they are clumsy. The samurai are not. This is where the first ending seems to happen. After weeks of losses, disease spreads through the fleet. Food spoils. Morale collapses. The invasion looks stalled. Some Mongol officers argue for withdrawal. Others insist reinforcements are coming from the south. They are. But when they arrive, they make everything worse. The Southern Route Army finally reaches Japan. It is massive. Tens of thousands of fresh troops. Hundreds of ships. For a moment, the Mongols feel relief. This is it. Now the hammer falls. They anchor together, waiting to reorganize. And in doing so, they create the largest, densest target imaginable. The Japanese watch from shore. And they smile. Because now, the sea is crowded. There is nowhere to run. And heaven is about to flip the board. But not yet. Because first, the Mongols will hit their lowest point. And it won't be the storm. It will be the moment they realize they are already dead. You think this is where nature intervenes. You think this is where thunder rolls, waves rise, and history takes a clean, dramatic turn. It doesn't. Because before the sky turns against the Mongols turn against themselves. The two invasion forces finally come together off the coast of Kyushu. On paper, it is a masterpiece. More than 4,000 ships. Over 100,000 men. Enough firepower to flatten Japan twice over. In reality, it's a floating nightmare. The ships are different sizes, built in different regions, with different crews, different command structures, different languages. Orders have to pass through interpreters. Signals are misunderstood. Flags contradict drums. Drums contradict shouted commands. Shouted commands dissolve into panic the moment anything goes wrong. And something always goes wrong. The fleet is packed too tightly. Anchors tangle. Hulls scrape. Supplies are unevenly distributed. Fresh water runs low. Latrines overflow into drinking barrels. Disease spreads fast. Dysentery, fever, infections that turn small cuts into death sentences. This is not an army. It is a prison camp on water. At night, the Japanese return. Again. And again. And again. Small boats glide in like insects. Samurai leap aboard, kill whoever is closest, set fires, vanish. One Mongol officer orders lanterns lit across the fleet. That night, even more ships burn. Because now the samurai can see their targets clearly. There is a moment recorded in later Japanese accounts, one of those small, almost invisible moments that tells you everything. A Mongol archer, exhausted, terrified, jumps into the water to escape a burning ship. He swims toward what he thinks is wreckage. It's a Japanese boat. The samurai doesn't kill him immediately. He waits. He lets the archer grab the side. Then he cuts his fingers off one by one. The archer screams. The sound carries across the water. Other Mongols hear it. They see the shadow of the boat drift away. No body floats back. After that night, more Mongols choose to burn with their ships rather than jump. Now let's talk about leadership. Because this is where Kublai Khan's absence becomes fatal. He is not here. He is hundreds of miles away, in China, waiting for reports that never match reality. His commanders are under pressure to succeed at any cost. Retreat is not just failure, it is political suicide. So they double down. They order a full-scale landing. They will smash through the walls. End this. The assault is catastrophic. Mongol troops hit the shore in waves, only to be funneled into narrow kill zones. Samurai fight behind stone walls, arrows finding gaps in armor, blades hacking at exposed legs and hands. The Mongols bring bombs. Explosions rip through defenders, but the walls hold. Bodies pile up so thick at one breach that soldiers have to climb over their own dead. 4 hours, neither side gives ground. Then the Japanese counterattack. And this is where something ancient and terrifying emerges. The samurai stop fighting as individuals. They fight as executioners. Groups swarm isolated Mongol units. They drag men down. Helmets are torn off. Throats are cut. Heads are taken. And those heads are not discarded. They are collected. Because head-taking is not just ritual. It is proof. Proof for reward. Proof of valor. Proof of survival. By the end of the day, the Japanese shoreline is lined with severed heads drying in the sun. Mongol soldiers can see them from the water. Faces they recognize. Men they ate with. Men they joked with. Now staring back at them, eyeless. This is the psychological collapse point. Mongol warfare depends on fear moving outward. Now fear is moving inward. Soldiers refuse to disembark. Korean sailors argue with Mongol officers. Chinese conscripts sabotage equipment. Horses break their legs in panic aboard ships not designed to carry them. Hong Daegu writes desperate messages requesting new orders. None come. Here's another human story. A Korean ship captain named Kim Bangyeong. He is loyal. Experienced. He's commanded fleets before. But he knows the truth. The weather is turning. The winds are wrong. The ships are anchored too close. He begs higher command to spread out. They refuse. Because spreading out makes night raids easier. So they stay clustered. Waiting. This is the second false ending. Because many Mongols believe the worst is over. They think, we've survived the Japanese. We've endured the raids. We can outlast them. Some even believe Japan is finished. They are wrong. Because now, the forgotten trick appears. The Japanese do something unexpected. They stop attacking. No raids. No fires. No arrows. Silence. The Mongols relax, just a little. And in war, a little is enough to die. Japanese boats drift out again. But this time, they are not attacking. They are empty. They drift among the fleet. No one reacts at first. Then, explosions. Fire blooms from inside Mongol ships. The drifting boats were bombs. Floating bombs. The Mongols panic, cutting anchors, colliding with each other, spreading fire faster than the Japanese ever could alone. This is not a storm. This is a trap. And it works. Now the weather finally changes. The wind rises. Waves slam hulls together. Anchors snap. The tightly packed fleet becomes a battering ram against itself. And then the typhoon arrives. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. Relentlessly. Rain blinds archers. Masts snap like bones. Ships capsize, smashing men against decks, trapping others below. Sailors scream prayers to gods they've ignored their entire lives. Some ships drag others under as they sink. Men drown tangled in rigging, pulled down by armor, crushed between hulls. The sea turns into a grave. Here's the truth history hides. Most Mongols are already broken before the storm. The typhoon doesn't defeat them. It finishes them. By the time the wind dies, The invasion fleet is gone. Wreckage stretches for miles. Bodies wash ashore for weeks. Japanese villagers find foreign corpses tangled in nets. Some are killed on sight. Others are enslaved. Some are executed in mass beheadings. Survivors are hunted. The Mongols never regroup, never return. But the real aftermath is darker, because Japan wins, and gains nothing. No land. No spoils. No reward. Samurai go unpaid. Political tensions explode. The system that saved Japan begins to rot from the inside. And Kublai Khan? He never recovers. He tries again elsewhere. Fails again. And the Mongol Empire slowly fractures. Because for the first time, heaven said no. One last false ending. You think this is about storms. You think this is about luck. It's not. It's about adaptation. And terror changing direction. You think the story is over. The fleet is destroyed. The Mongols are gone. Japan is saved. History books close the chapter right here. That's convenient. It's also a lie. Because the most brutal part of this story doesn't happen during the invasion. It happens after. And it explains why the Mongols never came back, even when they still could have. The storm passes. The sea calms. And Japan steps onto a battlefield that no longer looks like a battlefield. It looks like the end of the world. Ships lie smashed open like split skulls. Masts snap and bob in the water like broken spears. Armor washes ashore still filled with bodies. Men trapped inside their own protection, faces blue, mouths stretched open as if still screaming. The smell is unbearable. Salt. Rot. Blood. Smoke. Human waste. Death baked under the summer sun. Villagers cover their faces with cloth and still gag. Children cry. Dogs howl. And then the bodies start moving. Not alive. Drifting. Thousands of them. This is where the Japanese choice matters. Because they could show mercy. They don't. Survivors crawl onto shore, Korean sailors, Chinese conscripts, wounded Mongol soldiers who have lost everything. Some beg. Some don't even understand where they are. Most are killed on sight. Samurai ride along the beaches, cutting down anyone who moves. Heads are taken. Bodies are stripped. The sea turns red again. This is not vengeance. This is extermination. Because the Japanese know something the Mongols do not. If even a few survive, they might come back. Here's a real, documented incident. A group of Chinese survivors surrender peacefully. They are bound and marched inland. For a moment, it looks like mercy. Then the order comes. They are taken to a field. Kneel. Beheaded. All of them. The Japanese leave the bodies where they fall. As a warning. But not everyone dies. And this is where the Mongol terror becomes permanent. Because some survivors make it home. And they talk. A Korean sailor returns to Goryeo months later. He is thin. Scarred. Shaking. When officials question him, he refuses to eat for days. When he finally speaks, he doesn't describe the storm. He describes the nights. He describes the boats with no sound. The hands pulling men into darkness. The heads nailed to boards. The feeling that the sea itself wanted them dead. Word spreads. In Mongol lands, people whisper. Japan is cursed. Japan kills without warning. Japan does not break. And Kublai Khan hears these reports. Not polished ones. Not heroic ones. Panicked ones. Contradictory ones. But they all say the same thing. The Mongols were hunted. This shakes him deeply. Because Mongol legitimacy is built on inevitability. On the idea that resistance is pointless. Japan proves resistance can work. Worse, it proves Mongols can be humiliated. That heaven's favor can be questioned. Now let's return to the samurai. Because victory does not reward them. It poisons them. They fought the greatest war in Japanese history. And receive nothing. No conquered land. No loot. No prisoners worth ransom. The shogunate cannot pay them. Samurai begin to resent the very government they saved. Laws harden. Trust collapses. Loyalty erodes. The seeds of Japan's future civil wars are planted right here. Victory without profit. Blood without reward. Takizaki Suenaga survives. He lives long enough to commission illustrated scrolls of the invasion, desperate proof that he fought bravely, that he deserves recognition. These scrolls still exist. They show something fascinating. Not storms. Not gods. Human violence. Personal combat. Close killing. That's what he wanted remembered. Here's the final psychological truth. The Mongols are not afraid of storms. They fought in blizzards, deserts, monsoons. They are afraid of enemies they can't predict. Enemies who don't follow the rules. Enemies who turn fear back on them. Japan did that. Not with numbers. Not with technology. But with will. And adaptation. So when people say the kamikaze saved Japan, remember this. By the time the wind rose, the Mongols were already broken. The storm didn't decide the war. It sealed the lesson. You've heard the legend your entire life. That Japan was saved by divine wind. That heaven intervened. That fate chose sides. It's a comforting story. It's also the version that lets everyone off the hook. Because if a storm did everything, then no one has to face what really happened. So let's strip the myth away. And leave you with the truth. The Mongols never invaded Japan again. Not because they couldn't build ships. Not because they lacked manpower. Not even because Kublai Khan died a broken man, though he did. They didn't return because something far more dangerous than defeat happened. They lost their psychological supremacy. For the first time since Genghis Khan rode out of the steppe, Mongol soldiers believed they could be hunted. That belief spreads faster than fear ever did. In Mongol culture, heaven's favor is everything. Victories prove legitimacy. Momentum proves destiny. Japan shattered both. Not with miracles. With method. Let's walk through the final realization from the Mongol perspective. You are a veteran of campaigns that erased cities. You have watched armies collapse just from hearing your name. Then you sail to an island you're told is weak. And nothing goes as planned. The enemy refuses to meet you properly. They don't mass. They don't break. They don't run. They come at night. They kill quietly. They display your dead. They turn your own tactics, terror, back on you. By the time the storm arrives, you don't feel cursed by weather. You feel rejected. By heaven itself. And that rejection echoes. In the Yuan court, debates erupt. Some argue Japan must be conquered to restore honor. Others quietly refuse to commit resources. Korea resists supplying ships again. Chinese shipbuilders sabotage construction. No one wants to sail back to that coast. The empire still looks strong on maps. Inside, something essential has cracked. Now let's talk about what history hides on the Japanese side. Because this was not a clean victory. It was not heroic in the way stories like to pretend. It was savage, relentless, and morally brutal. The Japanese abandoned ritualized warfare because ritual meant death. They learned that survival requires adaptation. That lesson stays with them. It shapes their military culture for centuries. From night raids, to infiltration, to total war. The Mongols, ironically, helped create the very thing that would later terrify others. A warrior culture that no longer fights fair. Here's the deepest irony of all. The samurai believed they were defending civilization. The Mongols believed they were enforcing destiny. Both were wrong. This was not about good versus evil. It was about who learned faster. Now let's address the storm one final time. Yes. It happened. Yes. It destroyed ships. But storms don't decide wars unless one side has already lost control. The Mongols lost control weeks earlier. To starvation. To fear. To confusion. To Japanese adaptation. The typhoon was not the hand of God. It was the final confirmation that the invasion was already dead. And here's the detail 99% of people never hear. After 1281, Japanese texts quietly stop praising divine intervention. Instead, they obsess over preparation. Walls, boats, tactics, readiness. Because deep down, they knew the truth too. They won because they changed. Not because heaven saved them. So when someone tells you the Mongols were stopped by a miracle, you now know better. You know about the knights, the silent boats, the severed heads, the fear spreading backward through the greatest empire on earth. You know that the Mongols weren't defeated by wind. They were defeated by an enemy that refused to be predictable. And that's the real reason the Mongols never came back. Not because Japan was protected, but because Japan proved something terrifying. Even the most unstoppable force in history can be broken, if you're willing to abandon the rules it depends on. You now know the real story, the one most people will never hear. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Because history isn't decided by destiny. It's decided by who adapts first, and who bleeds longer. End.